Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited that you are joining me today. I am a podcaster and content creator, registered holistic nutritionist, and someone who really focuses on women's health, specifically fertility, preconception health, postpartum pregnancy, but honestly, like all women's health in general. So a lot of my episodes kind of dive into different topics around that. And outside of that, I also focus on holistic health and living, non-toxic living, biohacking, and everything like that. So welcome. This podcast has grown a lot. We are sitting at, I think, the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. And that is such a compliment. And I feel really proud of that. Mind you, the jump from 1.5% to 1% is drastic. So, when that day happens, probably next year, maybe later this year, but probably next year, you will definitely hear about it because it is a significant leap. If you have to look at the stats and the downloads and how many people you need in your little corner of the internet to get to that 1%. So I will be very proud when that day happens. But I'm so proud of the success that I have right now and how far we've come. So thank you for tuning in and for listening. I am starting this new thing where I kick off the show with obviously little intro, which I'm doing right now, and also a segment of the DM of the week. So I got this DM a couple days ago. And they always remain anonymous for, just to protect people's identities. And I pulled them from different places. So this one's from Instagram. A lot of them come from Instagram. If you want to send me a message, maybe I'll read it out loud. Sometimes TikTok, although I don't really answer DMs on TikTok, but sometimes Facebook even, or an email sometimes. But most of the time it's Instagram. So this woman wrote, "Hi, Brittany. First, I just want to say I really appreciate your content and you've changed my lifestyle in a much better way. So thank you. You have convinced me to get off the pill for nearly 20 years. I was wondering if you have a podcast I may have missed guiding me through the process. I'm on my last pack and I have read horror stories on the switch, but in the end, it's worth it. Are there any natural supplements you would suggest or any guides or tips? I look forward to hearing from you. Keep up the amazing work and thank you again." So I love this. This is very common for kind of the DMs I get from new people is, some love, which I love to hear feedback, and then kind of a question about their health. And I'm always happy to try and help as much as I can. So I haven't actually done a podcast episode on coming off of the pill specifically. And that is something that I would definitely be open to doing. I actually just posted on Threads, which is like, Facebook's version of Twitter, essentially, looking for women's health experts in different places on different topics. And one of them was on birth control. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully I can find somebody. Now, what I would recommend, and I've obviously replied to her and given her personal recommendations. But there are a couple of really great books out there about the industry of birth control, the pill, and what to do, how to come off of it. There are a lot of blogs out there. So I have sent those to her. And I would recommend really being gentle about it. Typically what you hear is like, it'll take you a few months to regulate and be okay without the pill. But in reality, it's actually much longer than that. So it can be a year, it can be even up to 2 years for your body to fully purge and fully, detoxify and no longer have those synthetic hormones running through your system. It actually takes a long time. So I know this. I was on birth control for 7.5 years. I went through that myself and I had to really learn about how it all works, how the cycle works when I was doing that. So my recommendations for her is just very off the top of my head. Be gentle with yourself and don't expect a regular menstrual cycle, balanced hormones, arguably within the first year. And give yourself grace if you have moments that are difficult or you have new symptoms that come up that are difficult. So maybe it's an acne flare up. Maybe your weight fluctuates. Maybe you become more emotional or irritable or angry or that type of thing. Those can be really difficult. And a lot of women will end up going back on birth control because they'll say things like, oh, I came off of it and I gained all this weight, so I'm just going to go right back on. But that's not the long-term solution. So a lot of the time you have to kind of wade through that and balance out through that and just kind of stick to being off of it, and it will balance out. Your hormones will balance out. There is so much you can do to balance your hormones. Like, that is a whole topic in itself. And I've talked about that in my menstrual cycle guide. A very holistic, balanced lifestyle is what I would recommend. Not over exercising, not under exercising, sticking to whole foods, not processed foods, getting the right supplements. I mean, depending on if you are looking for, fertility at one point, maybe not because you've been on it for 20 years. But even looking at something like a prenatal, which is just stacked for the optimal nutrients for a woman, might actually be a good idea. I was on a prenatal for a couple of years, actually, after I came off birth control with no intention of getting pregnant at that point in my life, because I knew that the vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients in there were specifically for the woman's body. And I could trust it better than a multivitamin for a woman that's a one a day type of idea. So you could do something like that. Needed is a great company for that. I work with them. They have some of the best women's health supplements I've ever seen. And their website has so much information on it. So much information on what to take and how to take it. If you don't want to do something like that, you could do even just a B complex vitamin that's methylated. So you would look for like methylfolate, methylcobalamin. These are the different B vitamins that are more easily absorbed in the body. So I would do something like that. I would also add in omegas in there. You could do something like Fatty 15, which is, the next level omega. It's a very biohacker supplement, and that would be fantastic as well to support your, cellular integrity. Also, just your hormones in general, getting that healthy fat in would be really important. Other things that you could do that I would do coming off birth control would be detoxing. I would skip the alcohol. I would skip any type of recreational drugs for a while, just because your body is already going to be detoxing and trying to kind of get rid of that synthetic hormone. So adding in extra toxins is just going to be a burden at this time. So watching those types of things, watching your sugar intake, and then doing my favorite biohack, which is the sauna. I would get in a sauna as often as you can, at least 3 times a week. Ideally daily. Man, if you could do a sauna daily after coming off of birth control, that would be phenomenal. I didn't do that when I was coming off birth control. I didn't really have access to one. But if I was going to do it in this like perfect world, that's what I would recommend is get in a sauna, start small, start short, start low temperature, whatever you could handle, increase it, add in cold therapy, add in meditation while you're in there, affirmations, stretching, all those things, and start stacking up your habits. When you look at a detoxing program, and some people don't like the word detoxing, but I don't really care. If you look at a detoxing program, the best ones are very holistic, right? So they talk a lot about, like I said, skipping the recreational drugs, adding in extra water, skipping processed food, eating a lot of whole foods. And they talk about exercising, sweating, going in a sauna, doing those types of things. I think that could help a lot. Any other recommendations above that? I mean, you could really go down that rabbit hole. You could do things like enemas, which a lot of people love. You could do coffee enemas. You could do water enemas, which are great for detoxing. Be careful with them, especially if you've never done one before. Do your research, watch the YouTube videos, educate yourself before doing them. What else would I do? It's very similar to preconception prep. Get out all of the plastic in your home, swap for things like glass, metal, ceramic. Yeah, just try to really eliminate anything that is adding any extra toxic or toxin burden to you. So that's kind of the approach that I would take. Slowly but surely, switch to more of a holistic, natural lifestyle and give yourself a year. If a year goes by and you are exhibiting symptoms that you don't know how to manage, that is when I would reach out to me again, or I would actually reach out to somebody who you can work with one-on-one or an expert in this space to get more help. I would definitely not go back on birth control if you can not do that. Another important note here, I guess, is the obvious one, is how are you going to be tracking your cycle? How are you going to be, avoiding getting pregnant if that's still your goal? I use Natural Cycles. Well, I used Natural Cycles, the app. I tracked my temperature every single morning. So I knew when I was going to be ovulating. I knew when my period would come. And so I've never had any issues with that. So I would look into natural ways to prevent pregnancy and to track your cycle. I think that's a really smart idea as well. So enjoy your journey. I'm excited for you. And yeah, keep me updated as you go. And thank you for the love. Thank you for all of the love and the support. I wasn't planning on really giving that many recommendations, but I kind of started talking about it and it just kind of goes. A shout out to Mimeo. Mimeo is a stack of 4 different biomimetic ingredients. These ingredients are very powerful. And like we're just talking about, they actually do help with detoxification. So they mimic a 36-hour fast in the body without you actually having to fast. So you get the benefits of things like autophagy or cellular turnover without actually having to do these extensive fasts that can be harmful, especially on the woman's body. So I love Mimeo, one of my favorite supplements I've found in the last year, and I recommend it to basically everyone. I actually recommended it to my mom recently because she was visiting. So check out Mimeo. Use my discount code biohackingbrittany in all capitals. It is on my website and linked on my show notes for you to easily find. And a shout out to Leela Quantum Tech. Like I was talking about the other day, I have set up their products in my new home and I'm so excited about it because I get to have peace of mind that I am mitigating the EMF here. So that's really nice. They have over 65 different studies that prove how their products mitigate EMF and really reduce the amount of radiation around you. So they have home products. They have body products like a little necklace that you can wear as well. I have the block. I have 2 of the blocks, and that's what I use. I use one right by my Wi-Fi router, and then I use another one in my bedroom at night. And then I also have their capsules that are necklaces, and I have one in my car and one in my wallet. So I'm kind of like, I have their products kind of everywhere so I can feel protected because I just think it's really important to be aware of the frequencies and the radiation around us as much as we can. So check out their products. I will link it as well for you and definitely use my discount code as well. They ship internationally. It can be a little pricey, so the discount codes definitely make a difference. So today's episode is all about hacking your home, but more than that, it's really about design and really how do we elevate home design in order to become healthier. This is such an interesting topic, like just kind of putting these 2 things together. I would have never really thought about this other than like lighting, which we talk about. But the way that we really get into it this week is much more significant than what I have thought. So we talk about circadian lighting in the home. We talk about things that bring you joy and why it's healthy for you and why it's great for your mental health, your inner peace and your passion. And how can you kind of start doing that in your home today? So I love this. As you know, I just moved into a new house. And so I'm thinking a lot about this. I'm thinking about how do I create these little corners of the place that make me feel good and seen and represent my values as a human, as a biohacker. And so this episode was really cool to dive into all of that. And I just learned a lot because design is not my area of expertise. I will do research and like understand what is trending and like what looks nice and what I am attracted to. But I am not creative enough to at all have a career in design. So interior design at all. This was a great episode. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. It's a lot of fun and it's a little lighter than some of the other topics that we talk about, which is really nice as well. And I really hope you kind of take something from this and apply it to your home, whether you're renting, an apartment or you own a house or whatever you're doing, there is something in this episode for you. So enjoy it. And I will catch you next week for another one. Reminder, my DMs are always open. If you want to chat about your health or anything like that, let me know. And I would love to chat. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning in to this episode today. I am really, really excited about today's guest and expert because we are going to be talking about all things design and health and healing, which is a very fascinating intersection. And joining me, I have the remarkable Mahwish Syed, and an award-winning fashion and interior designer, celebrated author, and resilient cancer survivor. And she has a very unique story, and she does very unique work, in my opinion, right now as well. So we are going to dive into her research and what she does. And we're also going to talk about her book, which is Purgatory to Paradise, which not only chronicles her courageous battle with cancer, but also illuminates how design became her sanctuary during her recovery, which I just think is so cool. So welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany. I am doing great.
Yeah. So I would love for you to kind of take us back to the beginning, maybe even pre-cancer. Where were you at with your health and how did that kind of change once you got this diagnosis?
Oh my God, everything changed. I felt like I had been abducted by Hades and taken down into the underworld, which is what I wrote. Basically, like everyone else, we try to do the best with what we can. We think we're eating healthy. We think, we're doing the right things. And, I've been a designer here in New York for 20 years, and I was just going along my merry way, and it was just a routine mammogram. So there was nothing to really warn me what was going to happen. And so suddenly I found myself completely immersed in the shadow side of life, because life as I had planned it suddenly was no more. And I had to grapple with, the idea that I was doing the tango with death.
Wow. And so what kind of happened at that point? Like, what was your first step towards this idea of maybe more holistic, environmental healing?
Well, it's so interesting because I think sometimes, and I'm going to use the gardening analogy, the seeds are already planted and it's what we water. They're already inside of all of us. And I call them my pomegranate seeds of wisdom. And so I was actually employing a lot of these things as a designer. Like, I have been creating beauty my whole life. And what I realized was that while I was going through cancer treatment, cancer changes your self-concept. It changes your looks. It changes your body. It changes your ability to interact with the world. And I think for me, it was about grounding myself into my parasympathetic state, which, you're in a trauma response when you get a diagnosis like that. And so during cancer treatment, I started using what I call my rituals of reverence. So, for example, when I was going through chemo, I began to, really celebrate the things I could imbibe, the things I could eat. And, I would take pansies and violas from my garden and garnish my simple sliced banana. I would use my best dishes. It's funny. My book is called Purgatory to Paradise because I realized that so many of us, including myself, I was living in a form of purgatory. And that means, I'll celebrate this when I get that, or I'll use my best dishes when I have this special occasion. Well, guess what? That special occasion may never come, or you're in a bad relationship and suddenly that person's pushing the goalposts. I had one more, milestone, another milestone. So suddenly you realize all of these things play a part in creating our purgatory. I mean, you were just telling me before we started that you moved from an apartment to a house. So many people who are renting don't put holes in the walls. They don't commit to the space they're in because they feel like, oh my gosh, well, I'll decorate it like I want to when X, Y, and Z, when I move out, when I get this permanent thing. And I think living a life, and this is all a part of this journey, our life is lived right here, right now. And creating your paradise means designing the most beautiful way to live right here, right now, no matter what you're going through. And especially when you're going through something like cancer or any other illness, you need beauty the most.
Let's talk about Mimeo, a breakthrough longevity supplement that hacks your biology to help you look and feel younger. It was created by PhDs in nutrition from over 7 years of clinical research, and Mimeo was designed to mimic the longevity benefits of fasting in a simple daily pill. Not only has Mimeo been shown to extend lifespan in animals by 96%, but users have been able to take as much as 2.5 years off their biological age in just 8 weeks. How? Mimeo's groundbreaking biomimetic formula uses a patented blend of all natural metabolites that work together to help your cellular health from the inside out. First, there's OEA, which is a metabolic supercharger clinically proven to help control appetite and promote fat metabolism, so you can crush those cravings and silence food noise throughout the day. Then there's spermidine, the cellular autophagy activator, helping clear out cellular junk to boost cognition, clear brain fog, and refresh your cells. Next, there's nicotinamide, a broad-spectrum NAD+ booster that's been shown to improve everything from metabolism to skin glow to immune health. And lastly, there's PEA, one of the body's most powerful rest and repair molecules that helps control inflammation, relieve discomfort, and enhance recovery so you can get that youthful energy back. Mimeo is designed to work like a super fast, super efficient fasting diet, but without actually having to fast. It's all about tapping into the power of your own biology, giving your body the cheat code to work its best, making you feel younger and healthier today. You can try Mimeo today. Use my discount code at checkout, which is biohackingbrittany, and you can get all of these benefits in a simple supplement today. Again, that's biohackingbrittany in all capitals. So definitely try it and let me know what you think. I totally agree with that. And we just moved into our new house, like you were saying, and we sold our condo before we moved, and we had to do some upgrades to some of the kitchen appliances. And one of them was a new oven. And it's so interesting because we had this old broken oven with a broken handle for like a year, and I was like, oh, we don't need to buy it. It's fine. Like this could still work. It was literally falling apart. It was like 20 years old. And then we decided to sell our place. And so we had to upgrade. We had to upgrade the appliances. So we get this brand new oven, and it's like convection oven. It's beautiful. It's digital. It does all these things. And then I got to like experience it for a couple of months before we sold the place. And it was exactly like you said. I was like, why didn't I buy this a year ago? I could have enjoyed it. I could have made my kitchen more of a paradise. Like, why did I wait until we were going to sell in order to upgrade things that were literally falling apart? And that was a good lesson, because I definitely won't do that again. I definitely want to live in, the niceties if I can.
Yeah. So for example, while I'm going through this crazy, roller coaster, I looked around and I realized that in that moment, I could create that beauty. And to me, Brittany, beauty is a very effective and powerful healing modality. I mean, I'm talking the definition of beauty. Most people think of as, surface skin level. What I'm talking about is from the inside out, which I think is the universe having a great sense of humor, since I'm known as an interior designer. So designing that beauty from the inside out. And that is divine grace. That is self-acceptance. That is accepting where you are as you are and realizing that you are beautiful and your space is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So how do you recommend someone start with that? Like, so say somebody, maybe they are renting, kind of like you were saying, and they haven't really done much to the space because they can't, but then they're listening to this and then they think, okay, maybe I can do these things. And I want my environment to reflect this inner beauty. Do you have like a couple of things that you typically say, like, here's some starting points, like how to kind of cultivate that feeling that you're talking about?
Oh yeah, big time. And it's so interesting. And that's a great question that you ask because it's so overwhelming sometimes for people. Like, where do I start? Like, what do I do? And the number one thing that I think is really everyone has access to now. Everyone has access to paradise right here, right now. And I want you to think about, for example, when you were 6 years old, what colors did you love? A lot of times when I'm working with clients, they're so afraid to choose color because they're choosing the safer option. Again, I call that kind of a purgatory. So that paradise is kind of remembering the things that you used to love before it was a trend, before it was in fashion, before suddenly you have to adult your way out of it. Think about what you truly love, and color is the fastest and easiest way to gain that paradise. And I'm not just talking about repainting. I'm talking about simple accessories. For example, you can even shop your closet. Go into your closet, take out your scarf, wrap your pillow on your sofa, which I call, your sofa's like your little black dress. So your pillows are like the scarf or the accessories for you dressing that up. And so even if you don't want to go out and buy a pillow cover, go into your closet, wrap scarves around that pillow, try different colors out, try different textures out, and see what feels good against your skin. I ended up really grounding into my 5 senses, and my 6th sense was my intuition. So letting yourself follow your intuition and like what feels right for you. It may not be in fashion. Scrap, the magazines. I'm being kind of, I'm a tastemaker and I'm telling you to scrap the magazine, but it is really important for you to ground into your authentic self. And it's funny because my subtitle of my book is How Cancer Helped Me Design an Authentic Life. And yeah, I've been an image maker and I've been a tastemaker for so long, but the number one thread that goes in and out of my life and my design career is finding that authentic resonance in each and every single one of my clients to be able to find that beauty within them and to draw it out.
I love that. I think it's very inspirational. And I would love to, dive into kind of your client work in general. And I wonder if you have any specific projects or clients that come to mind where maybe you have worked on a certain room or maybe even the whole house or apartment, and you've seen a significant, profound impact on their well-being after you've helped them kind of cultivate this inner beauty. Like, have you been able to be like, wow, you were like this before and now you're like this. And that's a direct relationship to you changing your home environment.
Your home is your healing sanctuary. That is your oasis. And I think we underestimate the power of our homes. And, I liken, your body is an ecosystem of intelligent cells in a community, right? And your home is also intelligent and it's communicating with you, with your body at all times. And for example, when I went back after cancer and I became certified in applied quantum biology, I started looking at homes from a quantum lens, from a circadian standpoint, and realizing the importance of light in a space. It's one thing to say, it's beautiful, but there is a cellular alignment that I find incredibly beautiful and powerful. So in terms of clients, being able to just simply open their window to bring that light into a space and use my designer's tricks, it's like when they walk in, they're in their paradise. And you know what? You are completely transformed. You're able to enjoy yourself and your environment in a way where you're not waiting to live. You're not waiting for the next thing to happen. You're actually present. And that level of presence to me is paradise.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned quantum biology. For those who don't know, how do you define it personally? And how does that kind of tie into making a beautiful home environment?
Thanks for that. Life is about energy. And, before we go woo woo, I just want to use an analogy of your car. Biohacking our way into trying to find the right fuel for that car, great. But if you don't know how to drive that car, then no matter how much premium fuel you put into it, you crash that car. So learning how to drive that car is really important. And what we do to gain that wisdom is through recognizing that life is energy, and that on an energetic level, if we can optimize our bodies through our environment, we can actually optimize our health. And that is huge, because there's another, like a pragmatic side, which I also did, which was audit my space after cancer. I looked around and I looked at the materials, the walls, the paint, the things that I was eating, the carpet, all of those things. I audited that. And I actually have that in my course for everyone to audit and also swap out. But on a quantum level, that means on the most minute energetic level, we can access resonance with our environment. And how to do that, that's like my life's mission, Brittany. That's what I love doing. It's so delicious.
I love that. It's so delicious. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it is interesting when we like kind of make those intersections and look at it from that perspective. And I love as well that you talked about circadian rhythms, because this is so important. And I wonder, I'm just thinking about the different homes and like apartments and things that I've been in. I always notice the light. I always notice, where does the sun rise? Where does the sun set? And how it energetically makes me feel. I have a girlfriend who has a ground floor apartment, and she gets like basically no sun. And so there's only one wall of windows in this place, and it's a 1-bedroom, and it's every time I go there, I get it. Like it's like a cheaper area of Vancouver, and whatever, these decisions I understand, but I just can't help but feel like, how do you feel awake? Like, how do I wake up and feel energized? And I contrast it to my current house that we just got, where I get to see the sunrise. So I opened the curtains this morning at like 5:55 a.m. and I see the sun, and I'm like, wow, today's going to be a great day. Like, I feel so good. I feel so aligned. And it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what my question is, but how do we prioritize that? I guess when we're moving is easy for us maybe to see, but maybe the average person doesn't really even consider that when they're looking to move somewhere.
This is really interesting. So I grew up in Pakistan, and Islamic architecture and Southeast Asian architecture has ancient technologies that have been employed throughout generations. And so having a central courtyard, usually it had a water feature, usually it had plants, and that's where we congregated. That's where we ate our meals. And the other rooms were on the periphery. So a lot of times we were underneath the sky. Most meals we were underneath the sky. And during the summertime, we would sleep, outside. So it's so important to recognize that a lot of humble places are the richest. And I think, I deal with people who are really affluent, and it's so funny that a lot of expensive homes are actually really toxic for you. Like, for example, a smart home with all the Wi-Fi that you're like constantly being marinated in. It's actually worse than something that's even more humble. And I think we have to get down to basics. And let me explain it this way. If you think of your human existence as a species on this planet as a 24-hour clock, electricity has only been around in the last 30 seconds of our existence. For the other 23 plus hours, we have lived by the rhythm of the sun. Our biology is inherently tied. Our biology is ancient, and it is inherently tied with the seasons, with our climate. And it's so important to recognize that other than the sun, the only source of light was firelight. Okay. So according to, I don't know if you know this, but, and I talk about this a lot, but candlelight at night, instead of being, marinated by the blue screen of your television. But if you use candles and start to give your body signals that it is winding down and you're back into a parasympathetic state, you can get a better sleep. And by the way, there are studies that show the correlation between the wrong light at the wrong time and cancer. So it's so important to recognize that we can design a home that is in tune with our biology on a circadian and quantum level, on an energetic level, because at the end of the day, Brittany, we are light beings. We have photoreceptors in not just in our eyes, but on our skin. We are able to communicate with the world. Our body is communicating with the world, whether we are conscious about it or not. And I think so many modern diseases are a result of lifestyle. And I just want to mention, most cancers are epigenetic. Okay. Over 70% of cancers are the result of your environment and your lifestyle, which is great news because that means that you have agency. You have the ability to create and design your environment so that it is in alignment with your biology. And by the way, our bodies, the divine intelligence of our bodies, we strive for homeostasis at all times. Our bodies are trying to get back to that level of homeostasis, of equilibrium. And I think designing a space for you where it's in alignment with your beautiful, ancient, intelligent biology is utterly my pleasure.
If you're like me, you are thinking about your energy field, you're thinking about radiation, EMF, and 5G around you. And honestly, you're kind of worried about it as well. What if I told you you could just get a product, put it in your house, set it and forget it, and know that you're actually reducing the amount of EMF and radiation around you? That's where Leela Quantum Tech comes in. Their products actually neutralize EMF, even in electric cars. And this is so, so important because we are so bombarded with the amount of EMF and radiation in today's society. So their key product that I love is their Infinity Block. And it has actually been proven to increase ATP production, which is the energy in our cells, by 20 to 29%. So this really, really does matter. Leela Quantum Tech has over 59 studies, and they actually also have another 6 in progress. They are randomized, placebo-controlled, and double-blind studies proving the great benefits of their products. I really suggest you get this Infinity Block. If you can get something that you can put in your house and say, hey, this is actually helping to neutralize how much EMF me and my family are exposed to, it just makes sense. Why would you not want some sort of safety measure like that you can count on? They also have a Heal capsule, which is like a little capsule that you can bring with you anywhere you go. And it does this same thing, obviously to a smaller degree and smaller circumference around you. So I like to wear this when I go on planes because there's so much radiation on planes and EMF. And I like to wear it just in general when I travel. Their products have been proven to optimize HRV and improve your blood and obviously ATP production, like I said. So that's what I would do. I would really recommend looking into how you can manage your quantum energy field better, because this is such a key aspect of optimizing your health. You can get a significant discount through the link on my website and also in the show notes. And that will help you be able to get this at a better price. So again, this Leela Quantum Tech, I have the Infinity Block. It's in my bedroom. I actually sleep right beside it. And then I also have their Heal capsule on a necklace that I take with me everywhere I go. And these are the two that I would recommend. I think this is a great starting pack for you and provides substantial coverage in order to neutralize the EMF that's around you and optimize your health. Yeah, I love everything that you said and I agree with it. I've taken a lot of time to optimize the light in my home over years because I am very sensitive to light. So, and it's actually not very complicated. Like once you start researching it and learning about it, you can optimize your circadian rhythm in your home pretty easily. So, using things like candles and red light and blackout curtains at nighttime. And then during the day, having that blue light spectrum, having the brighter lights is kind of what you want to do, right? Like you do actually want that blue light when it would be normal to have it when the sun is up. And so there's little tweaks that you could make that actually make a really big difference. And I've been doing this for a few years now, maybe even 5 years or so. And when I sleep in an environment now that is not designed with my circadian rhythm, I feel so different. I feel so off and it actually makes actually struggle falling asleep. I like take longer to fall asleep and then I wake up more throughout the night and I kind of feel a bit more restless. So say if I'm in like a hotel room or something like that, I can definitely feel how I don't feel like I've like done the whole wind down thing, low, no fluorescent lighting thing. I feel very like amped and I don't like that. And so I think there is a lot we can do. And I really agree with what you're saying with how important the environment is. And I love that you actually mentioned studies that show that blue light is linked to cancer because I didn't know that. I haven't heard that. And that's kind of scary because blue light is everywhere in our society now. Like even street lights, sometimes the light bulbs that they choose for them are terrible. Like they're so bright.
Awful.
They're awful. Yeah. But I also want to talk about epigenetics like you were talking about, because that's a very complex topic. And, I've talked about epigenetics before. So, understanding that we have a lot of control and say into how we activate these certain genes. Like, what are some tips that you would recommend for people at home to kind of optimize that, like optimize turning on the genes in the right way? We've talked about lighting, but what else can someone do in their home?
I really think it's important to audit the materials in your home. And I don't think people realize that indoor air is actually far more polluted than outdoor air. And the number one source of indoor air pollution is your carpet. And so if you look and see what's under your feet, and, right now these days, there's a lot of really clever marketing for pet friendly and washable and, anything that's pet friendly and washable and, machine friendly is code for toxic because usually that means that you're using polypropylene or nylon or a synthetic carpet. Not only does it release VOCs over years, but you're actually breathing in the nanoparticles and it's being ingested. You are literally eating your carpet over years. So that is important to recognize that that has an effect on your health in a massive way. And from a circadian standpoint and from a health standpoint, opening your windows is so important. Most people don't open their windows, and a lot of times it's an enclosed air system. So if you can, you're opening your window to increase air circulation. And since sunlight is not polarized, it bounces off surfaces. And by the way, Brittany, I have like great designer tricks where I bring in sunlight into a dark corner like a vampire hunter. And I try to use mirrors and ways to reflect that light into a dark space. But just being able to open your window helps your health. And those are those things are for free.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think about people who live in cities like New York City or something like that? Would you still recommend they open their windows if there is a ton of like traffic and pollution outside, and then maybe even noise that could be stressful for them?
I live in New York City. You're describing my life. My windows are open year round. And it's funny because there are birds that are seasonal migratory birds. And I know like when they've come back in, it's May, and I hear a certain thrush or a warbler coming through, which, by the way, those blue lights that you mentioned, those street lights, they've screwed up so many migratory bird patterns because they're so effing confused, and they're like, they don't know where they're going half the time, including office buildings that are lit at night, which is a major waste. But that said, city life, I still think indoor air pollution is a hidden killer. Open your window. The circulation is actually way better for you than to keep that window closed. I think that's a myth. And I really emphasize that everyone living in the city can still have a healthy life. Okay. The number one thing you can do, and you know this probably, and you talked about waking up so early, is to be able to see the sunrise and to start the cascade that needs to happen on a metabolic and hormonal level to begin that process. So that way, when you do eat that off meal or whatever, I think we've become a society of like biohacking our way out of death. And I just want to make sure we're clear. In my book and what I write about, death is not the enemy. Death is not the villain. Okay. Death is actually a messenger, and a life lived in fear of death is worse than death itself. So fear is toxic. Fear is not a good vibration. And so raising your vibration means being able to celebrate what is in front of you and figure out creative ways to create that paradise that is in the middle of Gotham, that is in the middle of street noise and all that. And by the way, street noise, yes, there's junk light and there's junk sound and junk noise. But at the same time, there's ways in which you can play, for example, the sound of the ocean, which is incredibly soothing for you. Why? Because it mimics your brain waves. It puts you in a theta brainwave state. Or sound of rain, sound of birds, all of those things are really important for your nervous system, because bird song actually soothes you, because for millennia, a bird singing meant that that environment was safe. And so we're actually still attuned to these sounds that I think are really important to recognize. So whether you play music, whether you have birdsong or ocean or rainfall, I think it's important to add that as a layer, just like you would add a layer of wallpaper to your environment. It's a layer of sound that you can add in to help your nervous system.
I love that. That's such an interesting point, that like when you hear birds singing, it means the environment is safe. I have I just got one. I got a little noise machine. It's like a white noise machine. So it has white, pink, and brown noise. And then it has natural sounds too. So it has the ocean waves, and I think it has like a river, maybe rain, something like that. And at nighttime, I use the ocean waves, which I love. And in the morning, in this new location that I'm in, I sleep with my window open just a little bit. And I actually turn it off, and I lie in bed and I listen to the birds outside, and it makes me so happy. Like I feel so calm, and again, just like excited for the day and peaceful. And it makes sense that in my biology, like what's registering in my brain is, this is a safe environment. This is a calm place for you to wake up and be in. And so now I'm going to think of that, tomorrow morning when I hear it, because again, I really just love this idea of bringing nature into the home and us being able to benefit from it.
Speaking of which, wonderful. I'm so glad you shared that. Biophilia is something that I design with, and that is basically the science of how nature affects your biology. And what's really interesting about biophilic design and what they're discovering more and more now is that having nature inside your home, I mean, think about it. Paradise is a garden, Brittany. I mean, there's a reason why we're attracted to green. You know, in Islamic mythology and Islamic folklore and in the Quran, green is the color of paradise. So it's no coincidence that plants really are wonderful for you on so many levels, including obviously filtering air and VOCs. But did you know there are studies that show that looking at leaves and think about, you know, are there any right angles in nature? I mean, leaves have curves. They have a multiplicity of shapes, and it actually is so soothing for your nervous system as you gaze upon leaves. And there were studies done in hospitals where they even had, for example, a photograph of nature and then artwork of nature and then like a Jackson Pollock, you know, abstract art. And the recovery rates were increased by 30% in spaces that had biophilic art in that hospital. So it's so important to recognize that we are inherently, again, inexorably married to plants and nature. And it's important to bring that back into our home instead of separating it out and creating what I call these living sarcophagi. Like we're entombing ourselves in these spaces and keeping ourselves separate from it. I happen to think allergies, for example, even this idea of allergies, it's almost like bad marketing for plants most of the time. And it creates this kind of us and them situation where we have to kind of sequester ourselves away from something that is falsely being scapegoated, actually. So it's so interesting to think about. And by the way, during the pandemic, there were studies that were done that, you know, during this epidemic of loneliness, even taking care of a houseplant helped alleviate depression and anxiety.
That's not surprising. I mean, it is surprising, but not surprising. Like, I just feel like whenever you take care of something other than yourself, there is that element that you get that boosts your mental health, whether it's a pet or a kid or a plant or something like that. Like there's something about tending to something and caring for it in that way that I guess feels natural to humans and feels, yeah, like alleviating of these symptoms of anxiety and depression, like you're talking about. And I love plants. I think it's so important to have them in the house. We have several, everywhere. And we also have outdoor plants too. And I really want to see more of this idea of nature coming indoors with like plants, obviously, but also with the windows open, with optimizing light, like you're talking about, and really just thinking of it from that perspective versus what we're sold to, which is smart homes. Everything connects to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Everything can think for itself now, which I think is so silly and not necessary. Even when we bought our new oven and we bought our new microwave for our old place, they were both smart devices. And I was like, why do I need my microwave to connect to my phone?
Right.
Like, why does that need to happen? So how do you educate people on that when, we're looking at modern conveniences versus like the health risks of that?
It's a really good question. It's really depends on the receptivity of the person. And it could be as simple as, hey, let's think about, I'll give you an example. Downlights, like hi-hats, recessed lights that, are ubiquitous in a lot of these homes. Did you know that the placement of lights in relation to your body also has an effect on your circadian health? And I'll explain this further. Think about the sun at high noon. It's above you, right? When you have an overhead light, say at 10 o'clock at night, you're giving your body the wrong signal. So it's really important to think about the placement of the sun and the placement of your light in your home. So during the nighttime, it's really important to design and to decorate with either sconces or table lamps or standing lamps and ambient light and not something that's above you and that's bright that sends your body the wrong signal. So looking at it and just saying, hey, this chandelier is really great. It's decorative. Think about it like a beautiful earring in the space, but it shouldn't be the only source of your light at night. There's different ways to draw in lighting into your space that is actually in alignment with your biology and that people don't realize.
Wow. That's actually really smart. I've never thought about it like that. Almost like you said, like mimicking the pattern of the sun. Because I'm thinking of, where I'm at right now. And it's like you said, like the brightest lights are on the ceiling for sure. And then in our kitchen, we have these like pendant lights that are above the island and they are much more yellow. Like I forgot what they're called, but like yellow orangey. And it's really nice because we use those at nighttime, but those are much lower, right? So that actually makes sense because that's like what the spectrum of light would be for the sun. So I have a question. This is like a personal question, but it's fine. So I'm currently pregnant and, I'm designing the nursery for the baby. So do you have any recommendations to optimize lighting for a nursery that would kind of do that same like optimization of the sun and how it peaks for a baby?
Well, if you think about, oh my God, that would be so much fun to design nurseries. I love designing nurseries. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So cool. I think it's important to have different sources of light in the space. So if you have, and there's like such great options and not expensive options these days to hang really decorative, fun sconces, like on either side of the crib. I don't know if I have to look at your plan and see where the crib is, but like have certain lights around. That's a standing lamp in the corner. If you have like a reading, like a nursing chair and you have a lamp near the nursing chair or like a little end table near the nursing chair or rocking chair, things like that. So like think about like zones in the space, depending on what the size is. And to create, I would really not use the overhead light at night, like past, I don't know, like 6:00. I think to me, one of my biggest designer pet peeves is like that lone dome in a sea of ceiling that you see a lot of spaces have as the only source of light in the space. And please, I want you to realize that LED technology is also very new and it's not great. So if you're going to use a dimmer, Brittany, I think for every one of your listeners as well, take your iPhone, take your phone, put it in slow-mo, put on your light and put it in slow-mo, record it for a few minutes and then play it back. If it flickers, that's a problem because that flickering is imperceptible and it is, however, registered by your body and it's a source of migraines, epileptic seizures, headaches, so on and so forth. So it's really important that if you do have a dimmer to make sure that that bulb can handle the dimming or get a bulb that is dim to begin with, especially at night. And I would also experiment with lampshades, like different colors that have a soothing glow at night that you keep that room kind of ambient and dim and not so bright at night.
Yeah, I love that. And it's what I've been thinking about too is like, it's very typical, right? Like a bedroom comes with like a flush mount against the ceiling. And so it's like, okay, how do we operate in here in the middle of the night when I'm getting up to breastfeed and we need some sort of light, but I'm not going to put on the big light. Absolutely not. And so I've been thinking about like red lights and should it be a standing lamp? Should it be, something on the table side that's right beside the glider chair? And especially as we talk about like the eye height and the different levels, it really changes how I look at it now because I want it to be as circadian friendly as possible. And I love what you said about the flickers because I have done that trick on my phone before and it's shocking to see what flickers. And I've had lights flicker on slow-mo, even when it's not on a dimmer. And I don't know how that works, but that kind of tells me that, we really should be looking at things much more closely than we probably are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a, again, these are simple things, but they're so important. And a lot of times, again, so far I'm not pleased with any LED technology we still have a long ways to go. A lot of times things that are marketed as good for the environment are actually not good for our health. And that's what I'm discovering right now is we're living in an age where the technology is before we're even testing it out, it's out there, it's on the market, and literally we are the guinea pigs. I mean, there's going to be studies like 50, 100 years from now, and they're going to be like, oh my God, this crazy Wi-Fi thing that these guys have been experiencing. I mean, if you even look at the history of electricity, and they were doing like shock therapy with electricity when it first came out. So it's so interesting. It's that same enthusiasm.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that with a lot of things these days. Like technology is advancing so quickly that how can research possibly keep up? Like how is it possible? Even when you think about radiation and EMF, and we kind of understand that, and there is research, but again, it's not like it's applied to homes right now. It's not like we're actively thinking about that. And then, there's all of the EV, like electric vehicles now, and all of that makes me think about EMF, and it's in our environment again. And yeah, it's a lot to think about, especially when, again, we go back to this idea of epigenetics and how important our environment is for our health. Like we can't just ignore this and then get sick one day and then say, oh, I don't know why this happened, when you're living in a smart house and every appliance is plugged into your phone. And you know what I mean? Like there's cameras and Bluetooth and iPads and TVs and everything. Like it's a lot to think about, but I think it is important.
It's so funny you mentioned, I do reels and reels about how smart homes are not so smart. Like I'm constantly talking about this. And again, think about it this way. Two things I want to mention. And yes, it's overwhelming. One, I would recommend that you look at what happened. I don't know, go back 1,000 years and see what people did. Because a lot of the technologies were very sophisticated, but really simple. I'll give you an example. From Southeast Asia, there's an architectural term known as jali. Jali is a perforated screen, and usually it was carved out of marble or sandstone or some other kind of stone. And the way that the palaces were designed, they were able to harness the flow of wind and create air conditioning, like ancient air conditioning. And right now, all of this is coming back with a vengeance. I mean, they're using this in Abu Dhabi and other places that actually need not to load up the electricity, but to figure out architectural ways to create cool. So think about what your ancestors did and look back on that as your roadmap, number one. Number two, yeah, those studies are going to be, long after we're gone. Listen to your intuition, Brittany. If something is telling you not to turn that light on overhead, listen to yourself. Listen to what that quiet voice inside of you is telling you. And I think that's so important. That's your sixth sense. And we are being kind of, we are told to not listen to that sixth sense, to listen to the studies, to listen to this authority. And you are your own authority in your life. You're at the helm of your own ship. And it's so important that you have the power to create those environments for yourself, to make those decisions for yourself. So it's important to empower yourself and let yourself have that.
Yeah, I love that. Tapping into your intuition is so key for that. And I notice that as well. Like I notice when I walk into a room and I have like this urge to open the window, and then I open the window and I feel so much better. And it's like, okay, that's my intuition being like, let's get some fresh air in here. Let's like clean this air up and make it better quality. And then you do it. And obviously you feel better afterwards. So I think there's a lot to be said about respecting yourself, and kind of tapping into that. So yeah, thank you for saying that. If people want to reach out to you and work with you, how can they do that? And how can they connect with you? Because I definitely think there's going to be some people who are going to be wanting to know more from you.
Thank you. I'm really out there on IG, on Instagram, which is Mahwish_Syed_designs. And, I don't gatekeep. Whenever I hear about a study, I love sharing it. And if you want, an audit list, if you want to know how to design your home from a quantum level, if you want to figure out how to have a healing beauty modality, go to claimyourparadise.com, which is one-stop shopping for all of these things. My portfolio is linked on there, and my interiors website is msd-ny.com. But Claim Your Paradise is your way to your paradise, and it's really accessible, attainable right here, right now.
I love that. I will add all of that to the show notes into my website so people can easily find you and connect with you and just learn more about what you do. Because I love the intersection of the different realms that you work in. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This was great. And I learned a lot from you.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.